I don't think I really came to Baba like a lot of many devotees did. I came through Shivangi. Her friend, lady friend, had a dream. In that dream, Baba came to her and told her that I'm going to Dali's house. Now, Dali is Dali Bailey. Shivangi's real name, original name was Dali Bailey. That's the only time Swami ever called her Dali. I would say what she had in 98 or 99, I have that. I had that recently in the last year, 2011. But where she was at in 2003, 2004, 3-4 years later, I have not reached to that state. I know that very clearly.
You're talking about the ultimate state of realization.
The Jivan Mukta.
The Jivan Mukta.
I did not understand the meaning of Jivan Mukta completely at that time as much as I understand now. But one thing we did understand was Jivan Mukta is a state that it means that by very definition, Mukti means liberation, Jivan means alive, being liberated while alive. Interestingly, over a period of about, I would say, 6 months for her, her inner voice develops. After a little while, she starts getting more inner prompting. She seems to be like there is something else besides her which is prompting her with these different thoughts. By about September, October of 97, she's hearing the inner voice extremely clearly by that time. And long conversations, two-way conversations started by that time. By that time, she had the continuous conversation with Swami, and she had that till she passed away. Even on deathbed, she was having that. Correct. And you know, you used the last sentence, which went through my heart like a bullet. She asked for liberation, right? He's pressing her liberation, says, why not him? Yeah. Right? So he's answering that question of, I have a shot at it this lifetime. If I stray away, next shot I'll get it at is 17 lives later.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. that did it for
so
me.
Many things.
An absolutely amazing story, the making of a yogini, in 5 parts. In part 1, how Dali Bailey, called Shivangani of Midland, Michigan, a woman of no significant spiritual inclination until midlife, and how she rose through the levels of spiritual growth to become a Jivan Mukta, one of a handful of human beings to live in uninterrupted self-realization for the rest of her life. And this is the story of her husband, Gyani Bailey, who Baba also led to self-realization and who chronicled Shivangani's complete story of spiritual transformation in several books and interviews. In this series, video insights from Shivangani already made public.
After getting exposure to and this training and coaching from Swami, and that too all at heart level, I have personally not even spoken to him once, it's all within.
You've never had an interview in the flesh with Baba?
I'm not one of those lucky ones. No, I didn't.
And never before seen talks from 2005.
And then again he says, we all can have this kind of experience. And what he does, he exemplifies very ordinary people like ourselves, so that the rest of us can get motivated, can develop the faith that if it can happen to very ordinary people, it can happen to each one of us.
Over the course of this 5-part series on the making of a yogini, we'll glimpse the commemorative prayer ritual each year on the anniversary of Shivangani's death, learn about the altar and prayer room where she began her transformation, and see how her memory is kept alive. But most importantly, we'll hear the complete story, start to finish, of the manner in which Holy Man Sri Sathya Sai Baba came to and forever changed Shivangani and Gyani Bailey. Welcome to Sojourns. Today's interview was recorded in Midland, Michigan on August 17, 2012.
Gyani Bailey, it's really a pleasure to be talking to you again on Sojourns. And this time around, it's not that I want to ignore the story of Gyani Bailey, quite the opposite. I really want to focus in on how you came to Sai Baba. But to tell that story involves telling the story about how your wife, your beloved, beautiful Sai wife, came to Baba in the first place, not that many years ago. And it involves some ups and downs, including her own passing of her physical form. So let's just begin from the beginning. You choose in telling me how either you came to Baba first or how Shivangani came to Baba.
That's interesting. Me, I don't think I really came to Baba like a lot of many devotees did. I came through Shivangani.
Yeah.
Okay. It's actually, she is the one who, now Shivangani and I, we were married way back, and then we've been leading a very normal life, average life, chasing the almighty dollar and making careers and having children and raising them. That's all the life was, you know, till 1997 January, which is 96, end of 96. That's when our mom, which is Shivangani's mom, she was with us for about 6 months and she was returning back to India. While returning, she left some books she brought with her to read. She left them behind. And then among them, one of the books she handed to, she gave all the books to Shivangani. He said, either you read them, keep them, or throw them away, you know. So Shivangani kept it, and she used to pick up one book and she kept reading it because her mom said, you might be interested, this is an interesting book, right? So she picks up that book and she keeps reading a page or two. Well, she was working at the same corporation as I was. So we had a busy life with raising children, so not much time, maybe a page or two at a time. And that was Shirdi Sai's Sai Satcharitra, written in Hindi. That was the book her mom used to read Hindi. Mm-hmm. So that was the one which was left behind. And then when she was reading it, starting January of 1997, some interesting things started happening at home, like little miracles of this appearing, some incidents which could look like coincidences, but if you put your mind to it, then it says, no, it's a little bit more than coincidences. So
and for those who aren't initiated into the Sai story,
right.
Shirdi Sai Baba left his body around, I want to say 1918 or so?
Somewhere around that,
okay.
1916, 18 or so.
So he was long since gone from his physical form.
Right. Okay. He was long since gone, but she was only reading the book. She has not seen him during that time. Okay. And so these miracles were happening, and then among our circle of friends, there was this friend who was a Sai devotee, Sathya Sai devotee. We used to go to their home. They were in our party circle, our Friday night and Saturday night party circle, you know. And we used to go to their home, used to see the picture of Baba on the wall, but we used not to think much about it. Well, it's somebody she follows, that's all it was, you know. So we didn't have any more connection than that. But when she started having these interesting experiences which are going on, she picked up one day the telephone and called her and said that, you know, you are a Sathya Sai Baba devotee, do you know anything about Shirdi Sai? Because Shivangani didn't know anything, right? And that lady says, she says, why do you, she said, devotees say Sathya Sai Baba and Shirdi Sai are one and the same, but why do you ask? She said, I don't know, there are some strange things are happening in my home. That's all she said. And her friend says that, wait a minute, let me call my husband and put him on the line, he'll tell you something. So the husband comes on, and then she explains to him what was happening. Then he says, just before this call, a week before that, her friend, lady friend, had a dream. In that dream, Baba came to her and told her that I am going to Dali's house. Now, Dali is Dali Bailey. Shivangani's real name, original name was Dali Bailey. That's the only time Swami ever called her Dali, that I am going to Dali's house. That's when she connected it to Sathya Sai Baba. And then the whole thing started from there, right from, she will go through those, and then interestingly, over a period of about, I would say, 6 months for her, her inner voice develops. And she's one of those people who never been to meditation, never attended a seminar, never knew much about it. And her background was in Hinduism, there is a particular group of following which is called Arya Samaj. They do not believe in imagery, and they only worship the elements, and fire is one of the things which they perform oblations to. So she comes from that group. although she had friends who were following all the images and so on and so forth, she was little familiar with the images, but not much. So her knowledge and understanding was very little anyway about the Hinduism and so on and so forth. And yet when it started happening to her, she started moving towards that inner voice thing, and she explains it very interestingly. Actually, when you hear her story, that's quite intriguing to me, because again, I knew her as close as the back of my hand, very close. We were buddies first before we became spouses. So it's she says that, you know, I'm having this inner prompting. The words she used was inner prompting. She says, I'm having this inner prompting when I go in front of our altar at home to light up an incense just to bow down to God. I get this inner prompting to just sit down and close your eyes. So she sat down and closed her eyes. And after a while, she said that she used to see light since 92, 93, that is much before spirituality, 5-6 years before spirituality, when she closed her eyes. She used to see it, but she didn't think much about it. It said, oh, it could be effect of looking at sun or this or that, right? You explain it away. So she sits down, and while inner prompting told her to sit down, she sits down and closes her eyes. She sees this light, and she's one of those people, you know, like very interesting and enthusiastic people who likes to do everything, everywhere, or have a good time in general.
Yeah.
So while sitting there, how would she just sit down and not do anything, right? So she sees this light, she starts moving the light around her body. It's a playful thing for her. It was not like she's meditating. Playfully she started moving the light around her body. And then it started moving. After a little while, she starts getting more inner prompting. She seems to be like there is something else besides her which is prompting her with these different thoughts. That's how she used the words, right? So this is all this is all interesting, is like the journey starts about February of 2007, 1997. By about September, October of 97, she's hearing the inner voice extremely clearly by that time. And long conversations, two-way conversations started by that time.
And what did you make of this when she started to share with you what she was going through and what she was hearing?
See, when I heard it first time, one thing is I come from a little bit more traditional background, more familiar with the religion and so on. Not that I was religious, never did any, rituals. But I understood, or at least I knew that what are the different things are there and so on and so forth, right? And when I heard it from her, I knew that what she's saying, whatever she's saying, is a little bit similar to what you read here and there. Nothing was out of line with it. It is not, and also everything which was being told to her were all good and right things. So I felt that, you know, it's a good thing going on, let's keep it going, but at that time I didn't think much.
Can't hurt anything, just let it go.
Yeah, I mean, just go along with it. If it's not leading you the wrong path, just continue with it, right? So she continued with that one. And very interesting is by 1998 January, it was January of 98, she was walking up and, she was, before sitting down to meditate, she used to do one exercise which is called Thrataka. They use the word Thrataka. What it is you look at an image or a flame and kind of look at it unblinkingly for a while, so that helps you to stop your thinking mind. And a lot of people do it for concentration.
Of becoming mesmerized by the flame or by whatever.
Correct. So
it has a good effect on slowing down your thinking process.
Exactly. It slows down your thinking process, right? And a lot of people, yogis, do that one. She didn't know that, right? But she was just started reading books and on, and she started doing that one. And while doing that one, I think something happened to her breathing process, and her hurts were her lungs were hurting.
Yeah.
Okay. And she sits down, and in the meditation, by that time she identified it as Swami, Sri Sathya Sai Baba, because the voice used to speak to her and tell her this, tell her that, and then lead her to the book. She'll open a book and randomly open a book. She'll come to exactly the question she's looking at.
But this is important. This is a big turn in her life. She starts to associate that voice with that of Sri Sathya Sai Baba.
Correct. I think The phenomena being associated to Sri Sathya Sai Baba started with her friend telling her that Swami is coming to our house.
That must have been a jolt too, but she probably didn't know what to make of that.
What to make of that? She did not know what to make of that. Her friend gave her a lot of DVDs and videos and all that one on Swami to look at. She looked at a few of them, then she said, no, this is not doing anything, because most of them are trying to convince you that there is a God, right? She said, I know there is a God.
So she didn't have, like some people do, this immediate
right.
affection for Sri Sathya Sai Baba.
No, not there yet. Not there yet. She was, her question was, I know there is a God, but who is this man? What is he doing to me? That was her question. If he's doing it, why is he doing it?
Yeah.
Right? So she goes on, and then that slowly develops, and then it leads on and helps her to, as I said, meditation. And then she starts having very vivid dreams, where she sees all this thing about varieties of things, right from her past lives, right going into different worlds. She's being taken over, and she has these dreams, and she'll wake up and she'll explain to me very vividly. And they were getting so many that we started recording on a tape recorder so that I could transcribe it into a book later, right? So this process was going on. This is all 97.
But this is important too. You had the insight. Was it your idea to start transcribing these stories from her?
Yeah. Somehow I was.
Did she go along with it? Did she think it was silly that you were going to copy these down?
No. But inner voice was also telling her to write them down.
Okay. Yeah. Did she share that with you?
Yeah.
Okay. So you had it on good foundation to go ahead and do that, which of course paid off hugely for you, for her, and for everybody who's ever read these books. By the way, mention the books in case anybody who's unfamiliar with you or Shivangani have never heard of it before.
Right. The first book is called Inner Experiences, and it is out of print now, but there is a PDF copy available. And it is, even if you kind of put Inner Experiences on Google, you'll find where it is located. You can download it.
Okay, and it will be, as soon as I get around to it,
right,
up on souljourns.net, SOULJOURNS.net. It'll be there in PDF form.
It's already there in Columbus Sai Center website.
Good,
okay.
Good.
And also Making of a Yogini, the second book. The first book is starting her journey from January 97 to February 98. And the second book is from February or March of 98 till the time she left, or till the time the cancer manifested in her in December of 2005.
Okay, so this is all documented, and it started with your taking notes and then making sure that they're all assembled in this book.
Right. It's the second book is Making of a Yogini. It is available at the same Columbus Sai Center also.
Okay. And it will be at souljourns.net.
Souljourns also. Okay. So it was going on, and as I was telling you, she had that when she was doing that pain in the lungs was there, and Swami tells her, he tells her, no, you did that practice wrong. Don't do that. Don't hold your breath at the time. He tells her that, and he says we have to fix your lungs. Then he says, go walk up and down the stairs. So she heard it, right? She's still
going to training for this.
Right, and she's still sitting there, right? Then there was a pause. Then she realized, then she says, now. Then the inner voice says that you take medicine when you are ill, not when you get completely healthy. You know? So she gets up.
So
and she's walking up and down the stairs.
Reprimand that she should walk up and down the stairs.
You know? So she walks up and down, and the inner voice says that as you're walking up and down, talk to me. So she comes down and she walks up and down these stairs up here, and she talks to Swami. And that is the first time where she could connect and speak to inner voice while doing other things in the awake state.
Wow.
It's not like closing your eyes, sitting down and speaking.
That's a huge leap. Somebody watching in might think that there's poor old Shivangani talking to herself again. Because it probably looks like that to an outsider.
Outside. And it's all in the head which is happening.
So she's not actually vocalizing the thoughts.
No, you don't see any lip movement, nothing.
But she's not just merely in meditation. She's vacuuming the carpet. She's cooking dinner.
Oh, all of them. Any one of them. Any one of them. You know? And she would be hearing that.
Yeah.
So it takes her. And interestingly, you know, it took her. And in her journey, there's other most important thing probably for everyone to know. Is a lot of people ask the question is, how come this person gets it? How come I don't get it? And even though I have a desire and I'm making effort, right?
Sure. Add me to the crowd.
Right.
I'm always wondering that myself.
Right, right. And she asked the question too. She asked Swami that question, why me? Because she was a very honest person. That's one thing, she was very honest. And she also asked, because I didn't do anything for it. I got it. Why me? And then Swami says that I took his words were, I took the Sankalpa 500 years back.
Sankalpa meaning?
Sankalpa meaning I, expressed my willed it. I willed it.
So
500
long
years
before you were even a speck in the universe, it was destined that you were going to be blessed in this way at this time.
Right. I mean, it's a revolution which was going through, and then when in Shivangani's video, I think the same question was asked, and she replies it saying that she had a dream, how it was told to her. She sees a majestic man on a couch, reclining, and there's a lady standing next to him, and she was standing next to that lady, and she extends something in her hand to that majestic man, and he looks at it and says, Sadbhav. Sadbhav means goodwill for others.
I want to parenthetically add here too that Shivangani's interview that you just alluded to was recorded in this very room in Midland, Michigan, and the year was 2003? 2004.
Yeah, it's May of 2004.
He taught me how to meditate. I'm saying that it was Baba talking. And later on, I started even recognizing his voice, though it was not a voice that one hears from the ear, from our senses, but it was something within. And even the inflection of the tone, like whether the voice is happy, excited, sad, or sad, Baba never is, but what I mean, the tones, inflection of the tones, I could pick in that conversation and the communion that I had with him. Initially, it happened to me only during meditations. Then it progressed into awake stage also. While walking, talking, moving around, I was hearing these, I don't want to call them Baba talking all the time, but it was more like a guidance, a coaching, a counseling, that kind of phenomena going on. And then further, it progressed to no full sentence communication. It was more or less a word here and there, and rest was for me to figure out.
Please go looking for it right here on Soul Journeys.
Right.
And it's Shivangani Bailey, so it's maybe 100 videos ago, but you'll find it.
Right.
If you're interested, go on.
Yeah. Now, what I was getting to was, interesting is about how does one get to this inner voice, like the inner voice she got to, because that's a lot of people have the desire, interest for that. How does one get to it was the question, and Swami very nicely took her in an experience fashion, explained it to her what it was, and he told her for Mahashivratri of 1998, which was February-March time frame, he said go to the temple, Shiva temple in Flint, and they'll be doing all night rituals there. Go participate in that rituals, and you sit there and meditate. That's what he told her. When you cannot meditate, you can do this chanting the name of God, just to occupy your mind so that you're not drifting away in your thought process, right? So she goes to that place, and when she's there, she looks at all the people. A lot of people come very well dressed, and they have bought all this lots of stuff to offer to God, which is food to fruits to other things and so on and so forth, right? And while she was sitting there, Swami starts conversing with her, and he tells her, do you see all the people there? And she says, yes, Swami. And he says, all these people have been my devotees for 20 years or plus. Then she says, yes, Swami. And she's been a devotee probably not more than a year, right?
Yeah,
so she understood
she's brand new.
Right.
Even though he had her on his radar 500 years ago.
Right. For her, it was only a year, right? So she says, yes, Swami. And then he says, do you know how much money they spend on me? He said, he asked her. She just keeps quiet, right?
In the temple doing the pujas.
While the puja is going on, and he is talking to her. Then he asked the question, they've been doing so much for so long, why is it that you deserve what you deserve compared to what they are doing and what they are getting, you know. And she kept silent. I mean, she knew that she didn't do anything, right?
Yeah.
And she kept silent on that. So that was one instant where it says that you're getting a lot more than people who have been putting a lot more into it than you did, right? But it ties up all the story later. Then he, you know, in this journey, he also made her go and talk to a few people in town. The people who have read scriptures quite a bit. They knew a lot of this.
A lot of book knowledge.
A lot of book knowledge. He used to prompt her, go call that person, have a satsang with him. So whenever she goes there, she used to take me with her. So when I go along with her, I'm hearing all these conversations, right? Then we come back home and chat. Then after a while, Swami again says that, you know, those people who you're going and having a study circle or discussions with, how much do they know about scriptures? She says, a lot, Swami. And how much do you know?
Nothing, Swami.
Nothing, Swami. And she has to say it, right? Then he says, why do you deserve what you deserve compared to them?
And she didn't know, of course.
She had no answer. Then Swami, now he says, he repeats what he said in the temple with the people who are doing rituals. They've been doing rituals for 20 years. Why do you deserve what you deserve compared to them?
Yeah, I'm waiting with bated breath for the answer here.
Right. Then he says that, then he repeats this one and he says that only reason why you are getting what you are getting is purity.
Purity.
Purity. Purity at the thought level, at the word level, at the deed level. People who are synchronized.
So she had no envy, no jealousy, no mean-spiritedness, no anger.
No mean-spiritedness at all.
No ego.
Honesty.
No ego. I mean, I'm saying this from my own experience around her.
See, by the time you came.
She was transformed. But transformed from what? She had already been pure. Transformed as a Baba devotee.
Right, but see, along the journey, Swami said you need to develop your virtues. He said that. Okay, there are about Shirdi Baba comes in a dream and says, "I need $17 from you." Really, he used to say whenever he asked for money, he's really asking for your virtues. You know, Shirdi Sai was, and so 17 virtues. And one time, Swami says, "You sit down with Gyani." We were in the bedroom at that time. You sit down with Gyani and go through each of the list of the 17 virtues. See how many you have, how many you did not have. This is about 97, 98, right?
My guess is she would have had them all back then.
Not really. I mean, it's not, you know, you got to remember one thing. If you're totally squeaky clean, 100%, we would have been gone a long time back. We wouldn't even take the birth.
But he himself said it was because of your purity, and I would think that umbrella covers all areas.
It does cover all. Like out of the 17 virtues he is saying, when we looked at it, she had 14 of them under her belt completely, right? But 3 needed improvement. Right?
Are you going to share with us what those were?
One of them, because you were telling about ego, she had an ego.
I can't believe it, because when I met her, she had 0 ego. She had minus ego.
Right. 2004 you met her. By that time, she already became a Jivan Mukta.
And for those who don't know, Jivan Mukta, unlike a self-realized person, is a self-realized person who stays in that state always from the point they become a Jivan Mukta. Do I have that right?
Correct.
Not just in and out like some realized individuals.
I mean, that is the process we go through. We come to it like people who have that cosmic conscious experience and so on. After that also they're in and out. That is the process.
Exactly.
But then later on it matures and you get to the state of being what they call a witness, total witness attitude. By the time ego is gone, you know.
And just to put it in perspective, among that time 6 million people walking the earth, there weren't many Jivan Muktas. I think you know the number. I know the number.
Yeah, I know the number.
I do too.
Right.
Do you want to share it? Because it's kind of shocking.
See,
but you're sharing it without ego, so I think it's okay.
Right. Actually,
I'm asking you to share it.
We were walking down. We have a rail trail here in Midland. And Shivangini and I used to go walking down that rail trail. And when we are walking down, she and I converse. While we are conversing, suddenly a 2-way conversation becomes 3-way conversation. Who's the third person? It is Swami conversing, you know.
You didn't hear him, but she did.
Yeah. And this happened hundreds of times. Not once or twice, not 100 times. I'm talking hundreds of times. Swami once corrected me when I said, maybe it happened 100 times. He said, no, hundreds of times, he said, in my meditation.
Excuse me for laughing, but this is a hilarious story. All of it's hilarious. It's a wonderful, wonderful story. And I think it's good and appropriate to share it with a gleeful approach to all that's happened for your lives. Right. Okay, go ahead.
As we were walking down, we were talking about it. And in those days, a lot of the swamis and gurus come from India, visiting America, and a lot of people host them in their homes and all. And some people used to host them here, and we go there. And as a custom among Hindus and Indians, when you see a Swamiji and all, we consider that it's a highly evolved soul or a higher spiritual state soul.
Sure.
So we touch their feet, right?
Yeah,
so we were talking and walking down and says, it'll be nice if we know who is a realized soul, who is not a realized soul. I'm saying this, right?
Yeah.
And look at how Swami gets in. He says,
so he butts into the conversation.
Oh yeah, I asked her, and then she looks at me and says, you know what Swami said just now? I said, what? He said, why does he need to know? Why does Jnani need to know? He's asking. Shivangini tells me, Swami says, why do you need to know? Right? She tells me that. I said, no, the reason we need to know is because some people come there, if they're not realized soul, then I won't bother touching their feet. If it is a realized soul, it's good that I touch their feet, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Said, you know what Swami said at that time? That is a very clever way of mind trying to put people at different levels. That is the game mind plays.
So he was rapping on your door about judgment.
Judgment.
And
because
we all
you're putting like, this person is a higher spiritually, this person is lower. Then he goes on to say, he says, nobody can know anybody else's spiritual state. Mm-hmm. Only God knows. That was a very clear statement. Then he says, he raps me on the head and all that stuff. Then he says, there are this many, less than 100 at that time.
Then he says, Ghani, do you know who you're married to? Less than 100.
Less than 100 realized souls. No.
Less than 100 realized souls in the world?
Jivan Mukta.
Jivan Mukta, the ones who are in constant state of realization. Less than 100 in the world. So let me see. 600 million minus 100. That leaves a lot of people who aren't Jivan Muktas left in the world. That is just amazing. I want to say unbelievable, but I believe it because I know her.
And if you look at all the Swamis and all that one, how many thousands and thousands are there already, right? They are not Jivan Muktas, many of them. And that's the trouble we get into when we are a lot of people who go seek gurus. They end up thinking that they are somebody evolved. They may not be. They may have the deficiencies. They may be a lot better than we are, at the state we are in, but they're not at the perfected stage where they can advise others.
And just for those people who can't, who have their phones ringing and they're distracted from watching the story, I want to put a little teaser in there that eventually we'll get to the point about why I'm in Midland today to film this interview with you on the anniversary of her death, where there's a puja held with a Hindu priest at a cemetery because she is a Jivan Mukta, because she did die in a state of being a Jivan Mukta. And in the Indian tradition, people are rarely buried unless they are a Jivan Mukta.
That's correct.
Yeah,
that's correct. It's like, yes, that is only the people who are realized are Jivan Muktas given that.
And to sweeten the teas a little bit, she was buried here as a Jivan Mukta at the behest, at the request of Sri Sathya Sai Baba.
Right.
He has a direct involvement with deciding about how her remains were to be handled.
Right.
Am I off on that?
No, I think you're right on, because when she was about to pass away, a week before or 10 days before, she told me that she has 3 wishes. She said the first wish is do the Antim Samskar, that is the final rites, final rite of a Jivan Mukta. Then I was reading a Shirdi Sai Baba's life story written by Swami's student, a girl who wrote it. And this is a very well known book. She asked me to completely read it, complete reading it before she passes away. And then the third thing she said is, the Jivan Mukta rites which you do for me, do them in Puttaparthi if Swami agrees to it. And when we got in touch with Swami after she left her body, then we started scrambling trying to get to Swami, and I remember, Ted, we called you, you called Dr. Chaudhary Variety, and
Yeah.
he was there for medical conference.
He
and
was 8 inches away from Swami's face
Right.
and asked him that question.
Asked the question, and Swami said, wait for a day. And after waiting for a day, when Dr. Chaudhary Variety probably forgot or didn't have it in his mind to ask him again, Swami stops and looks at him, and then asks him how the conference is going, and Dr. Valeti says, everything's going well, Swami. Then he remembers that, right? Swami, what about that answer to the fax from USA? And then Swami says, Swami never forgets. Then he says, Swami, then should they do it in Midland, or in USA, or bring him here? He says, no, I'm everywhere, do it over there. So that's the reason it ended up in Midland Cemetery, you know.
Wonderful story. Now, I distracted you, so go back to where you were.
Right.
Did anybody remember where he was in the story?
The purity
Yes, right.
portion of it. So it's like that's how Swami indicated the purity portion. And actually, if you look at the scriptures, it says this very clearly. You know, in the journey towards self-realization, God's grace is absolutely a must. No matter how much of spiritual practice you do, if you do not have God's grace, it ain't gonna go.
Yeah.
And Swami does explain it, like he says it in his books and so on, that you come up to a stage where you have, with your effort, you can go through, there are 5 sheets under which our soul is encased. One is the food sheet, another one is the life force, and third one is the mind sheet, fourth one is the intellect sheet, fifth one is the bliss sheet. But you have to penetrate all of them to get to that. And Swami says, you can, with your effort or with your sadhana, you can get up to the bliss sheet, but once you get to the bliss sheet, the automatic gears will take over. This process of once you get there, it will take over and take you to the right spot of penetrating the bliss sheet, and that is what we call grace. Grace is taking you along there, right? Without grace, it's very difficult to negotiate this, but it's not possible. You won't get to the end without the grace. And Swami writes very clearly, in order to get grace, the only thing which will make you get grace is purity. And if one asks what is purity, it is to have all the virtues, and the virtues will manifest in your day-to-day life when your thought, word, and deed get more synchronous. Usually we say one thing, we do another thing, because the I, the individual self, the lower self, the ego, wants something which it desires, and for that reason, even though they think one way, they'll do it another way, just to have it, that particular thing.
So did you see the transformation take place before your very eyes, or was it a slow, gradual process of her working on her ego, the one that you mentioned to us so far?
I saw Swami work on her ego. He put her in a, both the social situation as well as the work situation.
Both of which might call upon ego to raise its head, if you have it at all.
Oh no, it got beaten down, you know, literally beaten down. I've seen her go through that, you know.
Wow.
And it is a tough one to take, because they say the last frontier before reaching to self-realization is ego, you know. And that is the one need to conquer, because ego is raising its head in a very interesting, whichever direction you turn, the ego will raise its head, you know.
Just a side question here. I've often heard Baba talk about, he didn't phrase it as the last frontier, but he said one of the biggies in this sphere of life called humanity is jealousy to overcome. Might jealousy, I can't imagine that it is, but might jealousy somehow be tied to ego?
Oh yeah, it is. See, jealousy, it actually comes from, everything springs from desire. Desire is the foundation. Anger springs from it, jealousy springs from it, because desire is a, what I call a samskar, a vasana, or a impression, an impulse, which is in our subconscious.
A tendency that's come with us from a previous lifetime.
Previous lifetimes, or we can generate it in this lifetime too. The desires are very easy to generate. All you have to do is, that is the thing they talk about, and it is a very interesting thing which I heard one time. Somebody was giving a lecture on Gita, said that one. Our attention, like even Jack Holly says, he says, whatever you put your attention on, it gets stronger. And that is the way desire starts.
So if we already have desires, which most of us have, the more we simply focus on our own present desires, the more they expand.
And it's from the desire the anger comes. Unsatisfied desire is anger, and also jealousies come.
Okay,
Because,
so it is tied together.
It is tied together. Everything is tied back into desire anyway.
And he chiseled that out of her.
He chiseled out, and there came a time in meditation he asked her questions about like, what do you want? She didn't know what she wanted. I mean, it took her.
She didn't have desire.
Desire was gone at that time. And in her video she says that is, I mean, like, I don't have any desire, but I don't know, tomorrow Swami might test me and I might find out I might have a teeny weeny bit still hanging on to me. So we don't know.
How much do you want Gyani to stay with you for a while?
An interesting comment is a lot of people go the route of reading books to get to there. And I am basically my leaning it towards reading or trying to understand. Use
I would
your
say
mind,
you're an
intellect,
intellectual.
Right? Try to use your mind and intellect to understand, right? Swami used to tell her, don't let him read. I still remember that. And he used to tell her, instead talk to him. By talking to me, she is going through the experience, but I am experiencing it.
Yeah, it's a win-win all the way around.
Exactly. It takes me away from, you know, like reading will put the knowledge in the head, but it doesn't get internalized until unless you experience. Like, you know, as I said, we were walking down the trail, there's a three-way conversation, right? If you ask me about God's omnipresence, what else can it be? I mean, like, he's there asking, he's answering to my question. Then I ask her, oh, if it is so and so, then what about this? Pat comes the answer. If he's not hearing it, how does he know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So then, no matter what I read, no matter what I say, I've experienced it.
Two things.
Right.
You're talking about satsang, and for a lot of people, it's almost an abstract, formalized idea that I must go to a temple or a study circle or a gathering where satsang's occurring. Satsang can be, I want to make a brazen comment here, satsang can be with you and your partner or your neighbor or your child or your parent. Satsang, I believe, can be with yourself. Yeah. Can't you discuss ideas with you and your Baba self, with your Amma self, with your Buddha self, with your higher consciousness, and dialogue and debate subjects of merit that might raise your consciousness level?
Actually, that is the higher level satsang, because it's called...
I wasn't sure you were going to agree with me or not.
Oh, I'm agreeing.
Oh, okay.
That is even higher level of satsang.
Any of us can do satsang anytime.
Correct. You can, because that is what is called mananam, which is, shravanam is hearing or reading. Mananam is contemplating.
Yeah.
You're contemplating, and you have to contemplate, and that's one of the things even Adi Shankara writes in Viveka Chudamani is, for a disciple to be a disciple, it's not only that the person should have a total faith and surrender to the Guru, but they should be intelligent enough to ask the right questions. So when we're dialoguing inside, we can ask a question and we'll try to answer from within. And if it doesn't come, then you have to go seek it from somewhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That is even better, because now you're doing it more constantly, more regularly, more consistently. And that's what it takes is when you're going towards the Godward path, the more one-pointed you get towards the goal, the faster or your journey will continue to proceed forward.
And while we're on this topic, one other comment that I've heard Baba say, actually, I read it. I was book learning. He said, if I've got this right, many times, from what I understand, don't read more than you have to. Don't become any more book learned than you must.
Right.
You know, book learning for the sake of book learning, contrary to everything I was ever taught, is of little value. Pursue that which helps you, and once you're helped, then, as you've been discussing, go to the dialogue, go to the satsang, either with yourself or your higher consciousness, or with your wife or your friend.
Right. I mean, those all understand. See, the trouble is, like, a lot of people ask this question is, why is that? Like, even the scriptures say that you have to go beyond mind, and all this learning is nothing but of the mind. All this learning or understanding or knowing, which we talk about, is all trying to do it with your mind, which are trying to understand God and understand life or understand how this whole creation came about. It is everything of the mind. But every one of them says that you have to go beyond the mind to reach and understand what that is, right? We would know that. But in spite of knowing it, we are all built upon, based on, we are a package of what we are at this time, when we are born, right? We can say whatever we want to, but whatever baggage I have to deal with it. And each one of our baggage is different. And if my baggage has intellectual bent to it, until unless that intellectual curiosity is satisfied to a certain degree, I cannot really jump into devotion or jump into something else, because I am built that way. That need to be satisfied. So it's okay if one reads and goes through that one, but this focus need to be that they need to experience and internalize.
Yeah.
And
So-
if we can switch it to that, and that's what Swami was telling Shivangani when he says, don't let him read too much, instead talk to him. Her talking to me and telling me her experiences, that is experience. Whereas me reading alone was just reading a book and trying to toss it back and forth.
Really what you're doing is you're vicariously living the experiences of others who wrote the book. I mean, you're not really living your own experience
Correct.
to the maximum, as I'm deducing here that he wants us to do.
At that, yeah, it does. Because take yourself. I mean, you're doing all these interviews, hearing other people's stories, right? And the more you hear, the more it starts getting into you, some parts of it deeper and deeper into you.
Without question.
Right? As they get deeper into you, that's what the transformation begins.
And I'll say this parenthetically because one of the highlight of my life was to accept the invitation to speak in the Divine Presence before Baba in 2008 on Christmas Day. And the only message I came to the conclusion that I could say was, I was wrong. I thought I was doing all these interviews with great stories for the benefit of all the people who might be interested in seeing them or hearing them. When in reality, looking back over the years that I've been doing this, the chief benefactor of these stories is me. I'm the one whose life has been changed by sitting in 170 living rooms hearing people's stories. And it's a pleasure, it's my duty perhaps, and it's fun to pass these on to others. But for me, I'm living proof that being exposed to experiences and hearing about how they can impact my own experiences is how transformation occurs.
Actually,
It's a little transformation. We were talking with Rao Uncle yesterday, and he claims he's in kindergarten, and I think I'm right there with him. But at least we're not in preschool anymore.
See, what you said is the gist, if you want to say that. In the scriptures say that. Like even Swami, like this, Swami makes the students do service, seva, from very early age onwards. Why? Does the world need help? It's not that the world may need help, but it's not that the world needs help, that's why you're doing it. But it is that by elevating, by helping others, you get elevated. And the whole spiritual route is when you're journeying it, if I want to only elevate myself, then it is my ego again playing the game. Why am I secularing that I want to have it only, not others? But instead, if it is others you are helping, in the process it helps you. And Bhagavad Gita says that in different words, but it says go live in sacrifice. Yajna, they use the word in chapter 3, and which is you go live in sacrifice. That very sacrifice, yajna, becomes the milk cow of your desires, which means that all your desires will get satisfied as you continue to do seva and service to others. And that's exactly what you said is, you think you're doing seva and service, but that is the process by which you get elevated.
That's exactly correct.
Right.
And I see it in other people now all the time.
Right.
And I saw it in Shivangani. See,
Right.
I'm sorry in a way that I didn't have a chance to have the contrast of seeing the old Shivangani and the new
Right.
Shivangani. You went through that whole transition,
yeah.
not only in her, but in yourself, I'm sure, too.
Yes.
And I can't picture her as anything but beyond bliss and purity and having no issues to deal with because of her outlook on the life, which was just so loving and charitable.
Right.
I mean, how do I put this? She's not somebody who could be easily walked over by a spiritual seeker who wanted to hoard all her secrets and hoard all of her knowledge as much as or as quickly as they could. She was sophisticated about that, yet she was very serious about her approach to living life the most loving way possible and allowing us, outsiders, to see that loving stance be really the meat and potatoes of any message we needed to hear. Observe her. Understand what she's trying to model for us as she's living life on her own. Sometimes we go looking for all the highfalutin spiritual, mystical understandings of the spiritual path when the example of love might be all we need.
Yeah, love, patience,
Yeah.
How they kind of not get aggravated easily. I mean, that
Yeah.
equanimity, you know.
Yeah.
That is something amazing when you see that. Actually, when Swami said it was less than 100 Jivan Muktas, but one thing we need to remember is this list is very dynamic. It is not like a frozen list. Like Shivangani was a Jivan Mukta, but she is no longer in the body anymore, so she's already left. Same way that list keeps changing very constantly, and sometimes it could be more than that, but at that time when Swami told us, it was a small number, quite less than 100.
Was that term even familiar to you when you first heard her referred to as a Jivan Mukta?
I did not understand the meaning of Jivan Mukta completely at that time as much as I understand now. And but we took it for whatever that is. But one thing we did understand was Jivan Mukta is a state that it means that by very definition, Mukti means liberation, Jivan means alive, being liberated while alive.
So it's similar to, but much greater than, being realized while you're alive.
Absolutely. Shivangani got realized in about, Swami said that you have the Atma Gyan, but not Brahma Gyan. These are the words he used. Atma Gyan is realization that you are the self. Atma is the self. Gyan is realization. So she had the self-realization, but she did not have the cosmic realization yet at that time.
And while we're talking about this, I'm going to cause you to blush because the meat of a previous video that we did on Soul Journeys was to interview you, Gyani Bailey, primarily because of the revelation that came to me that not so long ago, a number of years ago, you realized, no pun intended, that you have become realized. It can go away if your thoughts turn to negativity, as I remember you telling me, but for the most part you've reached a state of self-realization. And I don't mean to embarrass you, but I'm hoping that anybody who's seeing this video for the first time inquire further, and maybe about 7 or 8 videos before this one, maybe 10 videos, the viewer will find a video of Gyani Bailey talking about how he became realized. Right. And it's a sensitive area because it's filled with opportunities for people to introduce the idea of ego into it. Okay. Well, that person's realized. Oh, you say that you're realized, or whatever it might be. It has nothing to do with that whatsoever. Yours is a explication on the highest level I've ever heard, without any ego, of that state that we all have to aspire to in our lifetime, which is why it's so instructive to anybody who sees it. Right. So that's done, and that's aside. So let's continue on now with where you left off, right, talking about Shivangani.
So Shivangani, Swami said about, I would say 98, 99, she came to that, she has seen the self, the way it is described in scriptures and so on. And it took her another next 3 to 4 years to get to the Jivan Mukta state. So Jivan, you can see now, the reason I'm mentioning the differences with what I've observed in her, and I can tell the same thing about you, what you said about me. I would say what she had in 98 or 99, I had that recently in the last year, 2011. But where she was at in 2003, 2004, 3-4 years later, I have not reached to that state. I know that very clearly.
You're talking about the ultimate state of realization.
The Jivan Mukta
the
state.
Jivan Mukta
Jivan
state.
Mukta state is the one who has the constant presence.
You're not jealous of her achievement, are you?
No. Oh, actually, if you look at it, the number of months she took to get to something, I'm taking a number of years to get there.
Sure. and you're my role model, and everybody sitting in this room, that if, you're her sidekick, so to speak, and Baba has graced you with this realization. And once again, why can't any of us, I shouldn't talk about myself because I feel like I'm light years away, but I know there are people who are profiting by your example, by Shivangani's example, and turning their attention more to where maybe it's best to turn their attention, to purity instead of the baser elements that seem to dominate much of our life. Right.
Actually, the thing is, a lot of people focus on the goal and whatever the effects or whatever the things which you can recognize the final goal as, but we don't concentrate it enough on where do we need to start and go towards it. And the starting point, like as I said, in between points are you need to have grace. In order to get grace, you need to get purity. In order to get purity, you need to have the other virtues under control. And somebody asked the question, how do we really begin if I were to be a new beginner to begin, right? Now I can say very clearly the way to doing it, and I've seen Shivangani doing it, is seva. Seva is selfless service to others, and satsang.
So the recipe for grace in your life is through the highway of seva and satsang.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Those are the two things. Satsang will get the thoughts that pull you away from God, away from you.
Because you'll be talking about God.
Exactly. So you're taking it out, because anything, Swami defines that satsang is that which keeps you in God thought, and anything that doesn't keep you in God thought is not satsang.
And that's why Swami also says that it almost sounds like he's speaking to children in kindergarten, and I'm looking at Rao, Uncle, and myself, when he says, merely repeat the name of the Lord, however it falls sweetest on your lips.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because it's replacing all the thoughts which bind you.
Yeah.
Useless thoughts which come into us and which bind us,
Yeah.
So and that is a powerful tool to do that one. And the other one is seva. Seva is selfless service doing to others. Initially we might do it with a motive. I would say it is okay to do it even with a motive, because you're still helping others. But that will transform as you keep doing it, transform into a selfless thing.
That's so important to underscore. Talk more about that, because people think, if I do this, I know my motives, I know my reasoning. Who am I kidding? I'm not kidding anybody. I'm doing it for selfish motivational reasons, to score points with God.
Correct.
And that's not a good motive. That's not a good reason to do it. But you're saying push through that by doing it anyway.
Right. Because everything will start that way, because you cannot, we are contaminated. When I'm taking the first level of contamination out, I cannot keep thinking and act as if I'm almost at the bottom end of the contamination which is about to go. I have to start where I'm at. And to start where we are at, even if we don't do seva, the service to others, whether it's selfish or not, if you don't start, you'll never get there. So first and foremost thing to do is to start. Whether selfish or unselfish, doesn't matter. And then once you get started, it will slowly evolve itself into unselfish anyway. And what does unselfish work do? It purifies your feelings.
And in that purification comes grace.
Absolutely. When you have that purification start occurring in you, that pulls the grace right to you. And that's how the grace is to be obtained. And it's written in I wrote, when I was writing the second book on Shivangani's life, there is that whole topic around purity. I address that, and that's what it talks about. What it also defines when you are pure, like if I have this under my control or not, right? If this particular virtue, the way to tell that you have it under control is not because, I don't drink, right? Suppose drink is bad for you, or drugs are bad for you. Okay, this is bad for you, you shouldn't do it, right? Now you go to a point of having a dislike and hatred towards it.
Yeah.
Right?
What does that prove?
It doesn't prove, because now the attachment from wanting it, now you took the attachment to the other end of the scale of hating it, which is as bad as wanting it.
Yeah.
Right? You got to get to the state of in between where it should not affect you. It should not matter to you. It should not be on your radar screen at all, Then you have really, transcended or sublimed that particular lack of virtue.
This is just wonderful. So let's continue with the story.
Right.
Do you remember where we were? Because I don't.
Right. She was, as I was talking to you earlier, she was like 1998. By that time she had the continuous conversation with Swami, and she had that till she passed away. Even on deathbed she was having that. And she went all through that. One of the few experiences, since we are talking her life, she would tell me, and it had some very great effect on me. And also, like as Swami said, that he had this, sankalpa, or the will, he willed it 500 years back. And that came from having sadbhava, which means that goodwill for others, which means that her good karma got it to her. But some of the profound experiences were like right above, where our shrine is. And at that point, I remember she having one vision where she was sitting there, meditating, and in the meditation she sees herself, and as she's seeing herself, Lord Shiva, the Hindu god, with his snakes around his neck and a trident in his hand, he slowly descends from the roof, through the roof, and lands in front. She's seeing this all as a vision, okay, in meditation. Lands in front of her, and then he slowly starts walking from towards her left side, comes to the behind. Even though this body is sitting there and meditating, looking forward, but where she was seeing that vision, she could see the behind too. He comes behind, and he slowly takes the snake out of his neck, puts it at the bottom of her spine and raises it, which is essentially saying that he himself came and raised her kundalini, you know.
So that might have been in fact when her kundalini was raised, or was that just a symbolic reference to it?
I think it was a symbolic reference, because when Swami says that one of her chakras got opened even before the spirituality began, before January 97.
Okay, so that leads to a question, because before she even became aware of Baba, before she became aware of the spiritual path she was about to leap into, she had this purity that enabled her to have the grace, that enabled her to come to enlightenment, that enabled her to come to being a Jivan Mukta. Should I conclude that that's because of the actions of this lifetime, or the actions of 500 years ago when he noticed that she was starting on towards this destination?
I would say a lot of it from previous life, because the speed with which she went, if you look at, like I used to give her the, actually Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa gives the example. He says there are three kinds of devotees. One is like a wet wood, another one is like a dry wood, and third one is like a gunpowder, you know. And the first wet wood is like if you light it up, you got to keep it going,
pretty slow.
blow on it, very slow. Dry wood will burn steadily, but the gunpowder, all it takes is a spark and it whooshes right out, you know. So in her case, it was like she whooshed right through the life itself in that 5-6 years.
She was ready to be ignited.
Ignited and go, and time for her to get going, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lot to do with what she did, because it's like earlier I said in the other DVD of mine, that she's one of the people who used to shared with me that she used not to have many thoughts even while she was a little kid and growing up, right? Her mind was very silent. So that comes, you already came with, which means that her baggage, which on her back, was fairly empty. That's the reason her thought process is so low. Whereas a lot of us who are trying to meditate and we keep thinking, cannot control our mind, it's because our baggage is quite a bit of stuff in it.
So to put it in the vernacular of everyday language, she came into this lifetime pretty well cooked.
Pretty well cooked.
She didn't realize it for the first half century of her life.
Correct.
But nonetheless, she was on the brink of realizing it, of understanding who she really was. And in spite of her not turning towards a spiritual pursuit for all those decades, the first part of her life, and she used to say she enjoyed life and all the material accoutrements of it, little did she know that what was happening to her had been happening for hundreds of years.
Correct.
And that she really couldn't stop her pursuit along the path towards this ultimate realization. And I'm trying to extract from that help for everybody to see themselves on a trajectory. I mean, it really kind of plays into the notion that Baba always dances around us, a very controversial topic of how much free will we have. She's been on this track, relentlessly pursuing it for 500 years.
Or more.
Or more.
Yeah.
And she ultimately found it. I mean, she's not coming back. She's not going to be, I mean, there would be no purpose for her to incarnate again.
Right, right. I mean, all of us are on that trajectory. It is just that where we are in that trajectory. Today we got the window into this film or into this play where she was at the tail end of her trajectory, but quite a few of us may be at the front end, at the middle of the trajectory. But all of us got the same trajectory.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only one exit.
Going to get there.
There's only one exit door, I call it. You know? There is no other exit door. You know.
So what's the lesson for you and me? We'll be back to Shivangani in a second. Should we just be less impatient with our desire to be one with God? It's going to happen, and we have to go through these purifying our tendencies and growing first, and just let it come to us.
Yeah, I mean, don't get impatient because God is not coming to you or you are not reaching there, but instead think of it that you are at the trajectory. You may be in the middle of your trajectory, and while you're going on that trajectory, one thing is important is self-effort.
Self-effort.
Self-effort. Because
so you still have to do your duty.
You got to. You got to. I'll give. Interesting is one time I was, she was standing up at the, Shivangini was standing up at our shrine upstairs. Mm-hmm. And I came up to her, and when I came up to her, I realized that she stands very quietly, silently in front of the shrine. I know she's having a conversation, you know. So I just come up there and bow down at the altar, and I came downstairs and making tea. And then she comes down after a little while. She says, you know, I had a conversation with Divine Mother, right? And what did she say? She says, when I reached up there, Divine Mother looked, she was smiling at me. Then she said to Divine Mother, oh, you seem very happy. He says, yes, I'm happy with you. What are you happy about? Shivangini asked. Divine Mother says, I'm blessing you, right? And she says immediately, what about Gyani, Shobhan, Resham? Shobhan, Resham are our kids. What about them? Then she says, the Divine Mother laughed. As if, you know, like a joke, you know, mm-hmm. What is this joke kind of stuff? And then she says, everybody has to do their own effort. There are no group blessings. You know?
Oh, that's wonderful.
That's a divine. So we got to remember that effort is needed, and everybody has to do their own effort. Yeah. You cannot piggyback on somebody else. It doesn't work like that.
And you can't really put a fire under somebody's backside and expect that they're going to start working tomorrow. It's their decision when they do it. Correct. It's their karma.
Correct.
And as Sai Baba said, quite controversially when I first heard it, you dare not even interfere with your adult children, let's say.
That's correct.
To push them further along a good path, let's say.
Right.
For risk of interfering with their karma.
Correct.
Where they are is where they're supposed to be.
Right. And also, like, if you interfere like that, anything negative happens because of your interference, the backlash is to you, not to them.
So you're incurring karma.
Right. That's what he said. And
so this is all very important stuff for people to get. I've heard this now 20 times, but this is the 21st time, let's say, and it's getting to me even more.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And the other one, another time, she was conversing with Swami, and Swami says that I'm blessing you with liberation. And she asked, what about him? Referring about
no group
me.
Blessings.
Right. You know, Swami said at the time he's not ready. Then she started challenging him. Why not? Right?
He's my husband?
Not that, because I used to help her.
Okay.
She's an honest person. I mean, she would unduly never ask for it, you know. I was helping her with all the kids' Bal Vikas classes. I would do prayers with her. I was sitting down doing meditation with her. She says, he's doing everything I am doing. Why do you say he's not ready? You know what Swami said? This is something important for all the people who are listening to understand it clearly. Swami said that what he is doing, referring to me, is dharma. But it is not sadhana. Dharma means obligatory, ethical, moral, and obligatory duties are called dharma. And sadhana is spiritual practice, right? What I'm doing is not spiritual practice. What I'm doing is only dharma. Then when you understand that, when you're born as human beings, we have 5 what they call dharmas. One of them towards our parents, and one of them towards God, one of them towards sages who wrote the scriptures, people who brought out the scriptures, and one of them towards all the ecosystem because it is sustaining you, and one of them towards Guru who gives you knowledge, the divine knowledge will help you get liberation. So these are the dharmas you have. And what Swami says, whatever I was doing with her at that time is only dharma towards God. I'm only doing that much. He says, in order for me to grow spiritually, I have to do more. That's what
this is so helpful. Right. So it's the sadhana which you never knew to do throughout your adult life, or perhaps your whole life, until she told you, because a little bird put it in her ear called Sai Baba.
Oh, that's right.
and so from that point forward, I can tell you, I know this man sitting in front of me has been a sadhana nut for many, many years now, because you understood the need to make that shift from just purely dharma to sadhana.
Correct. And you know, you used the last sentence which went through my heart like a bullet. And that was, He says, if he strays away in this life, next opportunity will come 17 lives later.
I remember you saying that, and Jody and I just were amazed. So if you stray, which means if you say, well, I'll get to it when I get to it.
Yeah, I'll just take it to the, well, it'll come.
Now, is he referring to the sadhana which you had to start doing, or the continuation of the Dharma first?
No, he is referring to she asked for liberation, right? He's pressing her liberation, says, why not him?
Yeah.
Right? So he's answering that question of, I have a shot at it this lifetime. If I stray away, next shot I'll get it at is 17 lives later.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. That did it for me.
So many things I want to say, but I'm biting my tongue.
So for me, the number one priority, and then he comes on, he takes Shivangini. No, another thing, one important point I forgot to mention was in 1998 April time frame. This is after writing the first book, which is up to February 98. In April 1998, I was not here. Shivangini used to meditate, and she used to get all these conversations with Swami. She would record them on tapes, and she will put them aside when I'm traveling on business. And at that time I was in Mexico. And she put them aside, and I came back and I never knew they were there, and she forgot to tell me and all. Then after she passed away, when I was writing the second book, I went through all the tapes. At that time I found this episode, which she recorded in her voice, and I have it all digitized and put it on my computer if somebody wants to hear it in her own voice. Okay.
Well, I want to hear it.
Right. We can do that.
Can we record it?
It's not very clear.
Okay.
Yeah, it will come very garbled.
Just hearing this is wonderful, though, because, and that also was a person, I've got to believe it was by design that you didn't get that until you got it.
Absolutely.
After her life.
Absolutely. Because I would not have been able to lead a normal life if I knew that.
Yeah.
Because it would affect me. Because in 1988, she says in the meditation, suddenly Swami springs a question to her. He says, you've been having intense desire to merge in me. Would you be willing to join me in 7 years?
Oh, let's leave this as a cliffhanger. We're 60 minutes into this interview, and I've learned many times not to go too far beyond 60 minutes at one sitting. So we're going to continue with part 2 of this story in just a minute, and we'll remember to go back to what you just said as the starting off point.
Right.
And I've got a list of questions I want to get to, and we want to talk about the puja commemorating Shivangini's life that we celebrated today, as we do every year on the anniversary of her death. And Gyani, this has just been, I almost want to say so much fun, but it really is an appropriate word. We're on the greatest adventure of our lives, those of us who have sought to tie our belts to Sai Baba's side, and the path takes us everywhere, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It is, if anything, that's a very appropriate word, isn't it? It's an adventure. Life is an adventure.
Yeah, yeah.
If you want to think of it. We don't see it that way because we get caught up in it.
Yeah.
But it is an adventure.
Well, thank you so much, Sai Ram, and we'll see you for part 2.
All right.
Rudram dhyajami avahayami Shri Rudraya namaha Ratna simhasanam samarpayami Padayoh padyam samarpayami Hastayoh argyam samarpayami Mukhe achamaniyam samarpayami Madhuparkam samarpayami Shuddhodaka snanam panchamritabhishekam cha karishyamaha. Saudhan se khade hoke. Navachasatva girijacha badamasi Yatha nas sarvamijjagata yakshmagam sumana asate Adhyavodaradi bhakta prathamo devyabhijake Ahikischa sarvaan jambutainam gopa adrishannudaharyah Utenam vishwabhutani tadrishtam mridajatinah Namo astu nilaggrivaya Mishanam sabhahyabhyantara shuchih Om sarvamangala vaptyartam